James White versus Jimmy Akin, Night 2. Caveat: the debate, featuring the arrogance of James White. This debate was a mess and a missed opportunity, but we'll dive into that in a moment. The title and subject of this debate seems to be in question. The host titled it, "How Does One Find Peace with God?" James White, at least according to Jimmy Akin, titled it, "One Finds Peace with God Through the Once and for All Finished Works of Christ provided to us by His imputed righteousness, which is ours by grace through faith alone." Jimmy Akin has titled the debate Justification, and all three men seemed confused as to which of these was the topic at hand. The host began by declaring both men would give a positive case presentation for their understanding of how we find peace with God. James White then opened with a sermon about imputed righteousness, and Jimmy then gave a debate defense about how Protestants and Catholics don't disagree as much as both sides think that we do. This is as good a place as any to review the debate as a whole. This was a mess. The host seemed lost and was on a completely different page than his two guests, as he seemed to view this debate as his church's first step to Catholic outreach. The audience reacted to Jimmy as if they were watching a comedy show or some sideshow. Jimmy was conciliatory and ecumenical, while James White was aggressive, angry, annoyed, and very confused by everything Jimmy said and claimed for this topic. James White seemed to want to debate Mitch Pacwa and was lost in memories of the good old days when Catholics said things he disagreed with and could, at least according to his recollection, easily counter. Mr. White did what he always does. He misread verses, added words to the Bible that weren't there, spoke Greek for no reason, and changed context and meaning on the fly to match his personal understanding of what the verses really mean. He attacked positions that either the opposition doesn't hold or at least hadn't brought up during the debate. And he assumed he knew his opponent's understandings and positions, thoughts, and motivations better than the opponent themselves. This was ugly and made James White look bad as a person and showed a weakness in his character, a flaw so grave that I think even if he had won the day, he would have lost followers and adherents for the faith. And this is not just a hypothetical opinion on my behalf. In reading the comments under multiple channels that posted this debate, this is the case for those who claim to be from his audience in the comment sections under these videos. Jimmy Akin gave up too much too early in a list of concessions to Protestant positions that I can only call dizzying. If he knew Mr. White's character beforehand, which I think Mr. Akin does and is more than aware of, I cannot think of this as anything other than a tactic. Otherwise, there is no reason to give this much ground to the opposition. Each Protestant position that Jimmy gave credence to had attached to it such caveats of such grave degree, which Mr. Akin did not address, that I am surprised that Mr. White didn't accuse him of outright lying. Luckily for me, as a viewer of this debate and as a consumer of Jimmy Akin's content, I have heard Mr. Akin build up these arguments for years and heard him develop a case for these claims on his channel and other channels on YouTube and on his blog. But I cannot help but pity the audience who must have been lost to hear a Catholic say these things. I don't think it just confused James White. I think it confused the audience as there was no grounding, and it came off as bizarre. And after hearing it, I can't help but think that Tux TV, as he speculated on my channel during our debate, was right. This has to be an outright strategy to reach out to the Protestant audience and get the lapsed Catholics among them to come back to the Catholic Church, to come home. Because otherwise, what Jimmy Akin argued makes no sense in the greater scheme of Catholic apologetics. Jimmy Akin found a way to affirm all the solas in a Catholic proper sense. And if given time, I'm sure he would have found a way to include, with caveats, all of Tulip as well. This was an insane gamble on Jimmy Akin's behalf. And if James White was any other man with a better temperament, I don't think it would have paid off. In my opinion, the way to find peace with God is through obedience, acceptance, and meditative prayer. My opinion on justification is that grace is a free gift from God, that Jesus' merit was superabundant, and that Jesus left commands for his faithful to follow as conditionals: to love your enemy, to love your neighbor, and to love God above all. That many, not all, will be called, but few will answer, and then even fewer will be elected. You can be called, but not answer. And you can be called and answer, but still be rejected after you have been judged by God. To have living faith, you must complete good works to fulfill Jesus' commands. Beyond that, I do not claim to know the heart of another, and only God can judge. And God can make any exemption he wants as to who is saved and who is not. Salvation cannot be earned, and you cannot buy your way into heaven. Then there is the question of who won. I want to say nobody, but by technicality, on points alone, I would say Jimmy Akin won the debate. But I could see this as a Pyrrhic victory that could be used against other Catholics in the future, especially if they are conservative and traditionally minded. This debate also does not help fight off the accusations against Jimmy Akin in the broader Catholic community, which one finds in the corners and under the rugs of the internet. There are those who call him a heretic and a Protestant infiltrator. And I am sure this will only feed the trolls and the conspiracy-minded among them. So if anyone won, it was the haters and the trolls, who will use this debate to point to all three of the men on stage. In conclusion, I think this particular debate with this topic between these two men with such a novel approach was a mistake. It would have been fun to have both opponents argue a positive case for their understanding of how to make peace with God, starting with each man simply stating their position and how it works and how to get there, giving practical advice along the way, which is what I thought debates were before I learned anything about formal debate as a high schooler. This could have been fun, interesting, and affirming, if not heartwarming. Instead, it was divisive, confusing, and frustrating, at least for one man on that dais. In my opinion, Jimmy needs to stop trying to get the audience to clap. He needs to stop complimenting the other side to the point of meaningless flattery. And he needs to stop trying to be funny, and he needs to stop speaking out of turn. He could benefit from dressing more appropriately, being more stoic, speaking less, and listening more. That is not to say that his demeanor or arguments should change, but the way he presents them should be more professional. As for James White, that man is his own worst enemy. And there is nothing that I can say to correct him that Ferris of How to Be Christian hasn't already said. So with that, good night. Peace, like, and subscribe. I'll see you all later. Please comment down below. Please share this video. I do have a Patreon, so if you want to support me, you can support me there. Thank you. And again, good night.